All right, welcome back to Read by Ed. This is my 3 takeaways review on extreme ownership, how U.S. Navy SEALs lead and win by Jocko, Willink, and Leif, Babin. So this is a book I've heard about. It's a New York Times bestseller, and I've heard a lot about this book. And this book actually is my wife's. They got it at work, at her job, and they just talk about extreme ownership. And so I was like, I got to dive in. All right, the premise of this book is that basically it's extreme ownership. You own up to everything that is in your leadership, everything that's in your sphere of influence. You own up to it. Like, you own up to it. You say, hey, the buck happens here. One of the prevailing stories was there was a situation where there was friendly fire, and I can't remember which author it was, but they were like, you know what? I could blame this on this, but it's something to me. He was in a meeting. He said, this was on me, and I promise you it'll never happen again. And they did an incredible job detailing how it never happened again. All right, so here's time for my 3 takeaways. All right, my first takeaway in extreme ownership, was the leadership. A higher authority gave one of the authors a command that author did not like. They had to bring a group with them to get these missions done. They couldn't go on mission or go out to combat without this group coming with them. And the author was like, oh man, they're not prepared. We don't have the same training, different things like that. And what the author had to do is realize, okay, my boss is giving me this directive for a reason. They're giving me this directive for a reason. And so takeaway from there is leaders have to believe and communicate the why. They have to believe and communicate the why. And so the leaders say, you know what? Let me understand why they're implementing this. And because they're implementing this, I need to communicate it. So now I believe, hey, if we don't get this done, this group will not be able to defend themselves, and they will be here longer. And so they got to understand that. They took time to believe and understand, and then they communicated to their group and said, hey, you all, this is why we're doing it. We have to do this, because if we don't do this, this group won't be able to be self-sufficient. So leaders they have to believe and communicate the why. Number 2, one thing I really, really liked in this book, my second takeaway is they were talking about leading up the chain of command. And so there was one person of higher authority, and this person would never allow them, they would hinder them going out and doing different things, and they kept getting frustrated. And they said, well, you know what? Let's lead up the chain. Let's give them all the information they need. Let's make sure that they understand why we're doing what we're doing, why we want these missions, why we're looking or asking for approval on these missions. And they even invited that person of higher rank, higher authority to come to them and see everything, right? Somebody's like, well, shouldn't they come here? No, we're going to do it for them. We're going to lead up. We're going to let them understand what's going on. And I worked in sports for a long time, and that just reminds me so many times work for coaches or administration, like, how do they not understand? Well, now I know, okay, let's help them understand. Let's lead up the chain. This is why we're doing this. This is why this is important. This is why your help is needed. So leading up a chain, it was something that I really, really liked. It was really, really good. Also, I forgot to say this. They talk in the book, they talk about combat and they talk about business. So whatever lesson they give you is combat. They give you a combat lesson and they give you how it can help in the corporate world or business. And then number 3, be decisive amongst chaos. Don't just let it play out. Be decisive amongst chaos. Don't just let it play out. This is one of the corporate stories they had. It was a story of 2 people, Miguel and Eduardo. They were they were working in this department, and they just always went at each other. They could never work together. This person wanted this. Miguel wanted Eduardo fired. Eduardo wanted Miguel fired. And Nigel wanted Eduardo fired. Eduardo wanted Nigel fired, and they just kept going at each other. So this person who was their supervisor, their VP, was just like, man, like, we can't like lose them, and what do I do? And they just literally said, you got to make a decision. And the decision the authors told this VP was like, why don't you fire both of them? She was like, wait, what? And they asked her, do you have people who can do it without them? You said that the team does well, right? You have people that are ready. You know that they're holding people back. And what they ended up doing is they made a decision in the chaos, and they fired both of them. They brought up the 2 leaders that were ready, and they found success. And so that was a reminder, like, you got to make decisions in chaos. Like, I never thought about fire both people or like scrap both plans or whatever it is for you. But you got to be decisive amongst chaos. Don't just let it play out, because if she would have let that played out, it would have took the company down. So those are my 3 takeaways from extreme ownership. A really, really good book. I needed this. I needed to hear this in my leadership. Like, it's just making me own everything. So that's extreme ownership. YouTube says this is a video of mine that you would like. Go out and read.